Hello. Welcome to the Trades Lunch Bunch. I'm your host, Sharon Wilson, publisher of Resort Trades Magazine. This is meant to be an interactive 30-minute session, so please feel free to ask your questions, and hopefully we can get to them right away. Now, perhaps you've received your copy of the October issue of Resort Trades. And if so, inside, Georgie Beaurod-Gordon has written a very nice article about our speaker today, who is Scott Bahr. Scott is CEO of CX Artisans, a group of industry leaders, functional and technology experts. Scott's successfully led businesses in several industries, including growing startups into $250 million plus market leaders. So he's been responsible for leading teams of more than 1,000 people. So Scott, thank you very much for gracing our stage, our virtual stage.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Before we get started, let's take a couple of poll questions so that we can get to know what our attendees are interested in. And we'll start with the first one, and that is, what is your involvement in the industry? A, developer, B, marketing, C, sales, D, management and operations, E, other. We'll take a moment to answer those. And then let's go forward with our next question, which is, what do you hope to learn in today's session? A, how to be a leader. B, what tools are available. I will get to see here any second now. Are there ideas I can implement immediately? Or D, hear what questions others may have. So while we gather the answer to those, Scott, perhaps you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself and begin to tell us a little bit about your ideas. And again, we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. And everybody, thanks for taking your valuable time to join us today. When Sharon asked me to come in and talk about leadership, I was honored. I think leadership, first of all, is very much a privilege. It is not a right. It is not a obligation. It is a privilege that some of us have, and it's a privilege that comes and goes. So, I look at the various leadership opportunities I've had. I've led big projects. I've led big teams. Worked in hospitality. I've also worked, in automotive. I've worked in industries in retail and durable goods. And today, I run CX Artisans, and we focus on helping companies innovate and grow. And one of those companies that I'm helping a lot right now, maybe you've heard of them. I spend a lot of my time with Amazon. So Amazon, I have nothing but good things to say about them. I'm privileged to lead a team of over 1,000 people for them. And manage $1 million a day in revenues. So it's definitely an honor, a privilege, and really an obligation that you do have to fulfill when you are responsible for those sorts of scales and those levels of people. That many people's livelihoods are in your hands. So don't take it lightly. Don't take it for granted. So that's why, for me, this is a really neat opportunity that I can share some of the little bit of knowledge I have about leadership, and we talk about those things that I've learned over the years that hopefully can help some of you as you're leading different teams and groups and projects. So if we can move forward, the next slide. As I said, I'm almost opposite ends of the spectrum. Run a very boutique consulting firm, and then have an operations leadership role with Amazon, focused on, we said $1 billion a year in revenue. I have actually, with the holidays approaching, I'm closer to 1,400 associates now, and 1 million plus orders a week. So that is taking in a larger and larger amount of my time. But the CX Artisans focus has been really exciting to me, because really that is helping small businesses become bigger businesses. So let me talk about 12 keys that I've found over the years really help leaders lead big teams, because leading other leaders is an entirely different opportunity than just leading a small group of people. So let's start at the beginning. If you don't set the right expectations up front, you're never going to get the alignment with your team that you really need, especially if there are multiple levels of leadership, multiple locations, geographies, if it's an international business. So make sure you set those expectations up front. And someone once told me that every employee needs to know 4 things. What's my job? What's not my job? How am I evaluated? How am I compensated? Keep that in mind. It holds true no matter who you're leading, what you're doing, what language you speak. It is true of everybody in every role across the world. So if they don't understand that, they can't be aligned with the way that you want the organization to run. Second, and I'm a big fan of the customer. I have a big focus across my career on the customer. If you work back from the customer what they want rather than with what need idea you're starting today, then you end up with a much better solution that has a much broader audience and a better targeted appeal. Third, and one of my recent leaders says this a lot, nail the plan. If you don't have a good plan and you don't actually work that plan and have your team working that plan, you're never going to get to a really good solution. You're never going to hit that pinnacle of success that you're striving for. So make sure you nail that plan every time. Fourth, be present. In these COVID times, it is tough to be present for your team all the time. We can be on these virtual calls, we can text, we can email, but it's not the same as just being present. So make sure that you give your teams the time that they need, the attention that they need, whether you're 1,000 miles away or in the next room. Make sure that they have your attention, that you are present for them. Only hire the best. I can't stress enough. If you have a great team, it makes your job so much easier. So from my experience, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you can recruit, elevate, and retain the best people, the best leaders, the best experts in any given area, you can deliver some great success. Number 6, care deeply. If you don't care about it, it will come through immediately in your words, your actions, and in the actions of your team. So make sure that you are caring. Make sure that you are paying attention, that you really do focus on what they need, what they're thinking about, what they're worried about, and don't assume that you know it along the way. Number 7, speak the truth and preach the why. So if you have great thoughts, those great thoughts don't mean anything until you say them. You need to explain to your team why you're doing the things you are, why you're asking them to do the things they are, and why you're approaching the goals the way that you are. And I use the word preach intentionally. It is not just say it once, but continue to preach it until that reaches not just the ears, but the hearts and minds of everybody that is working for you, with you. You know, a lot of the teams we don't lead because we have a title. We lead because we have influence. So think about it that way. If you are able to preach to them, to preach to their hearts, to their souls, to their minds as to why we're doing the things we are, it has a much more lasting impression than giving them a process list. Number 8, keep the team bought in. If you have them, you have their hearts and minds. You've given them the plan. You're working the plan together. You're there for them. You need to keep them bought in because we all have a lot of things going on. Maybe you're buying a house. Maybe you have a family issue going on. We have to make sure that when they're there with us, when they're focused on the work at hand, that really that is something that we have them focused on. They need to be bought into that plan. They need to be understanding the why. They need to be on the same page as us as a team throughout the entirety of the project, the entirety of the sales cycle, the entirety of our development of this great enterprise that we're pursuing. Measure what matters. Somebody told me when I was very young that what gets measured gets done. It's true. If there's reporting on something and you're looking at it, you're measuring it, you're tracking it, you're calling me out on when I miss a number, I'm going to focus on that number. So make sure that you're measuring the right things. Make sure that your KPIs, your dashboard, really reflects what you need the business to accomplish. If you're doing that, if you're focused on that, if you're communicating that and those sets of numbers, it's going to consistently be what your team focuses on. Deep dive your mistakes. I can't stress enough that, yes, we want to celebrate our successes, but it's equally important that we really be deep diving our mistakes. So if you haven't looked up 5 Why, if you don't understand 5 Why, understand it, drill into it, nail it. You have to understand what is the root cause, not just the surface cause, but the root cause of why did we miss a number? Why did we make a mistake? Why did something not work the way we thought and intended? Only that way can we get better. So through repetition, through understanding our mistakes, we can do better. So whether it's a sales cycle, whether it's a product development cycle, whether it's the construction of a new resort, if we're really focused on what went wrong and we're doing that deep dive into the why and admitting our mistakes, acknowledging the failures, along with celebrating the successes, then we can really do some good things. Number 11, course correct and sync. So I used to run big organizations and tactical organizations where we would try to meet on a weekly basis to talk about how things were going. I currently believe that if you're running a big enterprise and you're not syncing with your team multiple times a day to talk about how is today going, what do we do right, what do we do wrong, then you're missing the dynamics of that change that's going on. So be willing to course correct, be willing to plan the time and set aside the time that you can have those quick team meetings, 5-10 minutes, a couple times a day, where you talk about what's happening, what's right, what's wrong, what help do we need from one another, and where are we going to go in the next few hours. In a tactical business, if we're running a resort, if we're running a production operation, if we're fulfilling $1 billion a week in products, or we're just helping 20 customers to get a little better every week at what they do, it doesn't matter. You need to make sure you stay focused on getting better all the time. That means taking the time on a consistent basis to meet with your team to talk about it. And then win or lose as a team. If we're not in this together, then we're in it against each other. That doesn't work. So winning or losing as a team, I think, is incredibly important. And like I said, celebrate the successes. It doesn't need to be a big thing. With one of the teams that I lead today, their biggest success, they'd love to celebrate that with pizza. Now, I've got it on reorder with one button on my phone because we win a lot. But to them, knowing that we did really well this morning and we're going to celebrate it with pizza at lunch is a huge celebration for them. So I don't need to buy them really expensive gifts. And you'll find this a lot with people. They want the acknowledgement, the recognition that they did well. So if we're celebrating those things as a team, if we're really working together, celebrating as a team, or we're willing to acknowledge that as a team we failed, we didn't communicate, we didn't work together the right ways, we didn't push hard enough, then we're as a team going to find those opportunities to get better. So as a leader, that I think those 12 things, if you can keep those in mind, and you can download this presentation. If you know, this is simple stuff. I know you know most of these things, but sometimes it helps to hear them again. Sometimes it helps to over communicate. And in this case, I hope I was able to impart upon you something that helps you as you go back to your teams to be a little bit better leader today, tomorrow, every day going forward. Even just that little bit of improvement makes a big difference. So I appreciate your time. Sharon, what do we have next?
Well, I'd like to give the answers to or responses to the polls. Firstly, in our first poll, what part do you play in the industry? We have 16% are involved in marketing, 50% management and operations, which it kind of reflects Resort Trades audience in large part, and 30% other. And then the second poll was, what do you hope to learn? And 50% want ideas they can implement immediately, as do I. And I've taken notes. So I have them. Thank you. The other, both of these got 25%. What tools are available, and wanted to hear what questions other people may have. So, yeah.
Well, before you go on, let me talk to those things for just a second.
Yes.
So since we have a lot of resort operations leaders, I'll say some of the easiest things you can do. If you're not starting with a 5-minute sync or huddle with your teams at the start of shift to talk about where our focus needs to be today, you're missing a big opportunity. I know a lot of you already are, but if anyone's not, think about adding that to your cadence. Start the shift with it, end the shift with it. One of the weird things that it does, I might add, is people show up on time if they know that everybody's getting together. So that's always a plus sometimes when we have these interesting times of dynamic change. And then, I would just say, as a leader, make sure that you're really over communicating. We assume that because we know it and we've said it once, people hear and understand it, but they have to understand that in a lot of these organizations, they're hearing a lot of voices. They're hearing a lot of communications, yours being one of them, yours being a very important one of them. But make sure that you say things more than once. People need to hear things 3 times before it starts to sink in. So I just want to throw that out there for you, given the audience that we had, and I hope that is helpful.
Georgie earlier had a question for you. She wrote, as a leader, you have great respect for Simon Sinek. His description of how great leaders inspire action by focusing on the why seems to be aligned with your vision. And I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. If you've watched any of his videos, and he has a lot of them, and I think he's a brilliant speaker and a brilliant leader. So I would encourage all of you to look at that. But really, for me, the why starts with the customer. So I know I've talked about the customer before. I'll talk about the customer again. But really, if you're focused on the why with your customers, with your teams, it's going to sink in. It's going to hit their hearts as well as hit their ability to remember a process. And if they're missing a step in that process, but they understand the why, you have a much better chance that they're still going to follow through to successful execution because they understand the root cause. They understand that basis for which you're doing the actions that you are. So stay focused on that.
Well, Georgie actually had a follow-up question to that too, was where does customer experience begin?
So you think about your customer when you first see them, whether it's when they walk up to the front desk of your resort, when they call you on the phone to make a reservation. In the case of timeshare, when they come into that first sales presentation. But customer experience starts well before that. Customer experience starts in the first time that particular potential customer has an interaction with your brand. So that's multiple steps before you ever meet them. It may be the first time that they see your brand in a media advertisement. It may be the first time that one of their friends talks about the experience, good or bad, that they had with your brand. It may be something that they see in a blog. It may be on a YouTube video. If it's one of our kids, it probably was online, and it probably came in the form of a 45-second snippet from somebody, or a tweet or a post or something like that online. But increasingly, it's those touch points that you don't directly control that are the first contact you have with the customer. So you need to manage your reputation. And I know Georgie is good at this, but managing your reputation as a business isn't all about what you say. It's about how you act and about how others react to you. So those are the first things that start that customer experience, and you have to control them, even if you are not the one saying or showing them.
Right. Well said. Larry Gildersleeve asks a question. If you could recommend just one book on leadership, which one would it be? Good luck.
I still go back to a lot of the older books, but I think I go back to there's a book called Reinvention. And first of all, realize a lot of us have come to a media age where anything more than a page to get an idea across is just too much to us. So one of the great things about that book is it presents a lot of ideas and concepts to you in very simple ideas. But where I read 600-700 words a minute, I can spend half an hour on one page with 60 words on it in that book, just because it really is impactful in the words that were chosen, in how it acts, in how it behaves. So where Larry Bossidy and Bill Gates and others have some great books out there, and they're great in their own context. I really appreciate leadership books that focus on giving me the ideas that really will dwell in my mind and help expand my thought processes. And it doesn't have to give it to me piecemeal. Just give me the ideas, give me the root of the idea, and then challenge me to think deeper. And I think as leaders, that's what all of us want to do, is we want to think deeper about how can we lead? Why are we doing the things we are? How do we act? How are our words coming across? How are our actions, our visual appearance coming across? So that's the sort of leadership book that I really look for, is the one that's going to make me think harder about how and why I lead the way I do. Okay,
Larry follows up asking, who is the author of Reinventions? Well, we'll have to ask.
I don't even remember. I don't remember.
Well, I'll bet we could Google it. I'll bet maybe even Carrie will Google it while we're distracted doing other things. But I had a question. What does customer loyalty mean to you? I remember reading in your article something about Harley Davidson and how it establishes loyalty.
I've worked for some great companies. I've worked for Coca-Cola. I've worked for General Motors. I've done business with Harley Davidson. I've done business with Marriott, with Amazon, with some amazing names. But one of the things I realized over the years, we all think that we have customer loyalty. We all think that we can measure it as a percentage. But I challenge you, if you really think you have customer loyalty, how many of your customers tattoo your brand, your logo, your iconic images on their shoulders. So that was one of the lessons that I learned working with Harley Davidson and in some of their innovation and product development years ago, is really tattooing something on your body in ink. Now there's loyalty. The rest of it, it's rather just fleeting. But companies like Harley, like Disney, somehow they got the secret sauce for what loyalty really means to people and how do you evoke passion in your customers. So there's the challenge for you and your teams to think about is, how do I start to approach that level of loyalty amongst my customer base?
Well, that would be great. I confess I don't have the trades publishing tattooed on my shoulder.
I do. Oh, no.
Oh, good. We love you for that. What kind? Oh, I'm sorry. Marissa Gibson Bailey says, thank you for your presentation. As a leader, and thank you, Marissa, for thanking Scott. As a leader yourself, how would you identify another leader, especially in a young person?
I have that opportunity frequently in the role because I hire leaders. I hire people for what they can do 2 jobs from now, not necessarily the job they're going to start with. But I think if you listen to the words that a person says and you look at the passion that drives them, it's going to help you understand whether they can be a good leader. If they focus entirely on themselves, and I could have talked a lot today about specifics in how I led in certain situations, but really that's not going to help you so much as giving you some tools to use. I don't want to focus on me. And a good leader really focuses on what are they doing that's bigger than themselves? How are they able to take that gift they were given in being able to lead to transform an opportunity into a success? So take a look at that. Hear the words that they say. Of course, you need technical competence. There are skills that are specific to every role, and you need to be able to have those skills. You need to be able to explain and communicate those skills to an interviewer. I look at, I've done Strengths Finder, I don't know how many times, and I come back to the same strengths in there. And if you look at some of those tools, whether it's that one or another personality test, what they're designed to do is to help you understand, help you get to the real root of what am I good at? How does this brain work? And if you really can understand those things, then you can start to see that in other people. So you can see, is this person strategic? Are they a good communicator? Are they analytical in their behavior? Do they have good process controls? Do they have a good understanding of the business? All of those things start to line up to tell you this person has a lot of potential for the business that you're in. And one of the mistakes that I made when I was younger, that I will say is worth pointing out here, I used to think I could do anything. As you get more mature, you realize that you're going to fail at certain things. You're not going to enjoy other things, but you have to find that spot where the 3 circles of what am I good at, what is needed, and what do I enjoy, all intersect. If you can find where those 3 circles intersect, then you'll find success. You'll find happiness. If not, you might find money, you might find a job opportunity, but you're not going to find your passions in a way that's really going to help you grow. For me, it's innovation and growth. For other people, it's leading big teams. For some people, it really is money. But you have to find what's right for you. And as a person who is evaluating leaders, you need to look at what drives them. You need to look at how well do they communicate? How well do they follow through? Can they nail a plan? Can they understand complex ideas? Can they communicate? Can they inspire anyone? If you can't inspire anyone, then all you have is a title. But you really need to be able to show that passion, to show people that this is what matters to me. So I think if you put those things together, you can start to look inside of a person, hear what's behind the words that they're saying, to whether they can be good in this position. And then really, because organizations move so fast these days, can they be good in other positions for me? Can they lead? Can they take on my role in a couple of years so I can move up? If you can do those things, you've found good leaders.
Well, I think we're really running a little short on time, but I did want to ask, in view of the current situation with COVID and particularly how it has affected travel and the timeshare industry, what kind of special consideration goes into being a leader at this time?
I think three things. First of all, understanding. Every leader, doesn't matter the industry, you need to really understand what's going on, and you need to understand what's going on for your people. So there are the business considerations, yes, but you really need to understand your people and what's happening for them. If you're leading a big team, they may have COVID, they may have been impacted by someone who has. Their spouse or significant other may have lost their job, or you may have to be describing some very unfortunate circumstances that will impact them. So you need to have that understanding, first of all. Second, you need to focus on the positive. Really focus on what good is coming out of this. There's always good in things. You just need to find it. And then third, over-communicate. People under stress hear very little. It's just an unfortunate thing. But if you can over-communicate what you need, what's happening, what changes are happening, how this will impact them, over-communicate that you're available for them if they need to talk, even if they need a shoulder to cry on, you're there. But over-communicate knowing that not everything you say is going to be heard the first time. Not everything you say is going to be heard correctly. So put all those things together and talk to your people. Over-communicate to your people, to your customers, to the people you lead, to everyone, knowing that in these times, there's a lot of noise going on and they're not going to hear it very well the first time. But over the course of time, over the course of repetition, they will hear you and they will follow you.
Oh, thank you, Scott. I know before we wrap up, you did at one time, you said there are three key components a leader needs. Maybe you can just hit on those briefly.
Sure.
Briefly. Thank you.
Well, yeah, a leader needs many things, but first they have to have vision. If you are leading big teams, you have to have an understanding of where are we going. Second, you need data. Don't rely on your gut. Too many times we rely on, I think this is what happened. I think this is why it happened. Use the data, have the data, work hard to get to the root of what's going on. And then third, you need a voice. I talked about over communication, but a voice is something that every leader needs to have. And in these times, even more so, we need to make sure that our voice is heard, that the positives are heard, that the upside is heard, that the vision of where we're going is heard by our teams. We can accomplish those things. We can do great things.
Well said. And Scott, really deeply appreciate your gracing us with your presence today. I have a lot of notes, but thank you. Our next Trades Lunch Bunch will be next Friday, October 16, 2020 at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And it features Lena Combs. Now, Lena is a partner with a very highly respected CPA firm of Witham, and she's going to provide budgeting tips, which very timely since we're going to, well, I guess most of us are in the throes of formulating next year's budget. So be sure and register. Go to resorttrades.com/learning center and find Lena and go ahead and sign up for that one. And thank you very much. With that, we will adjourn.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.